Good morning, everybody, and welcome to InsureTalk 23, which happens to fall on the 23rd of June. My name is Nontutuko Mhlungu, and I'll be your host for the session. Well, as always, we've got a fantastic lineup in store for you today, with the theme being insurance in an ever-changing world. That is what you can look forward to on this chilly Thursday morning. All right, let me take this opportunity now to thank all of our sponsors, without whom the session would not be possible. A huge thank you to Old Mutual Insure, coming in as our headline sponsor, as well as our event partners, the IISA, who have assisted with the accreditation of today's content for 2.5 CPD hours, as well as Cover Magazine coming in as our media partner. All right, before we jump into our first speaker of the day, we'd like to wish the CEO of the IISA, Thokozile Mahlangu, a very happy birthday. We celebrate you today and thank you for all that you do for our industry. All right, over to the very first speaker of the day now. Saul Abrahams is the Chief Executive for Retail at Old Mutual Insure, and he's going to be giving us an industry update on rising inflation. Over to you, Saul.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you're all well. Dialing in from a chilly Joburg. I'm a little bit worried about my signal today. I'm getting some interesting messages saying my signal is not great, so hopefully we're going to get through this with a quality connection. But nice to speak to all of you this morning. I'm going to be talking to you about the implications of or the impact of COVID and what we can expect to see in the industry over the next couple of years, mainly driven by the fact that the world is quite different post-COVID and lockdowns, and I think our government's just released a statement saying that we can now take off masks and some other restrictions are getting easier. So as the world unwinds from 2.5 years of abnormal situations, I guess, there are going to be some interesting impacts on us. So the specific topic I want to talk to you was about rising inflation, but it obviously has knock-on effects on the entire industry, from customers to brokers, advisors, insurance companies, reinsurers also. So let's jump into it. I think we should be done in about half an hour. So quickly on the agenda, quick intro on what inflation trends we're seeing, why it's happening, and the impact of on the insurance industry. And then we'll have a quick look at what I think Old Mutual Insure's views are on the next couple of years post all this lockdown stuff ending. So quickly intro on myself. My name is Saul Abraham. I look after the retail portfolio within Old Mutual Insure, which is the personal, commercial, and agri portfolio. I guess I have a unique vantage point in the sense that all of the implications of the global kind of economy hits that part of the business first, and then it works its way into the specialty business and other more unique classes. So great to be talking to you guys about this. So let's just kind of talk about inflation quickly, not a new risk to short-term insurance, but the way it's unwinding and all the global economic indicators. I think it is the first time having spoken to many people in the industry, it's the first time in my lifetime and in many people's lifetimes that we're going to go through what we're going through right now, a global problem. So let's just talk about what's happening globally. I think if you read any sort of news online or print media, you'll see that right across all the major economies, the US, the EU, UK, everyone's having record high, 40-year high inflation numbers, right? No one really predicted this over the last 2 years, including us in South Africa. Inflation in South Africa, which is usually around the 4 to 6% range in the last couple of years. It doesn't sound ridiculous. You've got to think of it in the context as it being 4 to 5 times what they're used to. So in the UK, EU, etc. From a short-term insurance perspective, we're essentially exchanging premium today for a contingent promise to pay a claim in the future, right? And that effectively means that you've got to take your premium has to take account for any inflation that you expect in the future. So the risk, obviously, to all of us is that inflation turns out to be higher than expected. So that obviously means that when inflation is in a volatile space like it is now, your premium isn't enough to cover your claims. That's the reality of it. We've discussed historically, inflation has been stable, so therefore it's been easy to predict. I don't think it was particularly challenging for us to kind of guess that it would be between 4 and 6%. So now I want to talk to you guys about inflation and what that looks like. You'll see why the challenge is. Okay, so inflation trends. So what are we seeing from an inflation trend perspective? Let's just focus on the graph. The orange line that you can see is kind of what we are seeing as the 12-month rolling inflation. And you can see that over 2020, the number was stable and not really significant and not a concern. And sometimes actually deflation was playing a role. And you can see now from about late October, November last year, it's been a straight line upwards. If you look at the blue line, that's your 3-month comparison, month on month, quarter on quarter. So that's maybe an early indicator for what inflation could be down the line. And you can see that the blue line is way above the orange line and pointing upwards. Some of the points I want to make on this topic here is that what are the numbers looking like? Sorry, where we are now, the 12-month inflation year on year is sitting at about 12 to 15%, right? And the blue line is sitting at about 15 to 20% right now. So what does that mean? It means that something that cost a customer or an insurer to replace 12 months ago is now 15 to 20% more expensive. You can imagine the implications of that across the value chain, and we'll unpack it now. So what does that mean for an insurance company, a portfolio, a customer, is what we want to try and unpack, right? But let's just talk about what we think the way this is going to end. Firstly, right across the globe, I haven't really found an economist or a group of economists that have been able to predict this outcome. So my first response to where will this end is we're not sure, right? But for now, we think the landscape will settle, the inflationary landscape or the numbers will settle at about 15 to 20. So the cost of claims should set 15 to 20% higher than what it was this time last year. So in simple terms, if a bumper bashing on a motor vehicle cost an insurance company 1,000 Rand last year, it's now going to cost 1,200 Rand this year. And that has a massive impact on the entire value chain. So let's just a quick look at numbers. If we now go and look at the US market quickly, what are we finding there? So let's focus on some of these, the graph, the blue graph is the auto parts, motor parts. You can see similarly in 2020, the cost of parts just went up to 12% higher, right? It's off this axis here. So sudden spike in there, right? If you look at the used vehicle pricing, that's on this axis, used vehicle pricing went up somewhere around 35 to 40% on average in 2020 and 2021. And it continues that trend, although easing slightly, right? And we'll talk about this just now in more detail. And then the black line here is talking to construction materials. Again, pretty normal stuff happened in the US. Suddenly in 2020, it goes up, right? So it's not just South Africa, it's a global economy. If you look at these graphs in the UK, in the European Union countries, very similar trends being observed right across the board. Let's try and unpack what is causing this inflation. So why is this happening? So inflation is driven by many factors, right, that interact with each other. Very complicated to kind of completely unpack. I think there's some unique kind of scenarios playing out that will give us comfort around understanding why it's happening. So let's just define a framework. One framework is to categorize the driving factors into a demand pull or a cost push factor, right? So demand pull talks about prices rising due to demand being higher than supply. right? So if we talk about there being a shortage of certain things, and in other words, the supply is not there, but the demand for it is still there, you're going to have people kind of paying a higher price to get the same item, because obviously you've got many buyers and very few items that they want to purchase. From a from a cost push perspective, prices outrise due to rise in input cost. So if something costs more to manufacture, it will naturally push the end cost to the consumer. So that we would call a cost push impact on inflation. So let's just talk about kind of 4 items that are demand pull factors and 4 items that are cost push factors. Let's start with demand pull factors. The supply chain disruptions during COVID. We all know what happened. We were all sitting at home for a couple of years, intermittently in South Africa, and similarly right across the globe. Now, what happens when a lockdown like that happens is that it causes a bottleneck right across the globe, right? If you're a manufacturer of a car and you're expecting certain things to happen, you know, it's a very automated world nowadays, right? So if there's a shortage of chips, as an example, right, which you're going to talk about next, but if there's a shortage of chips because let's just say China is in lockdown because they're in their 3rd or 4th wave, and Europe's opened up because it's between their 3rd and 4th wave, that whole bottleneck effect just means that the entire value chain is a mess, right? And that's what's happening. And we're only winding out of those lockdown related supply chain disruptions over the respect. A little bit of it will be left over for 2023. On top of all of the shipping challenges, we had a massive issue around getting ships into ports and getting ships out of ports, right? So on top of the fact that we couldn't get the supply chain working, transportation of things we needed to move from port A to port B just took longer, right? On top of all of this, the containers, shipping containers that we move things in, there was a big shortage of that, and the cost involved in getting a container from point A to point B rose 5 to 10 times, depending on the route that we're specifically talking about. So supply chain disruptions, I think we get a picture of what's going on. Now, vehicle inventory in South Africa and in the globe. I'm not sure, but I'm sure a lot of you on the call would have looked at purchasing a car or selling a car recently. And the reality is that there's a massive waiting list for most of the big brands out there. Personally, we were looking at a car, and the waiting list for new cars is massive. We're talking 6 months to 9 months, not being an uncommon situation for new vehicles. Why is that happening? Chip shortages during 2020, 2021 meant that the entire production supply chain issues meant that there's just no new cars available, right? And that will take another year, I reckon, to sort itself out. What did this mean? This meant that people started buying secondhand cars. And like we looked at in the previous graph, just going to go back one, the purple line here, used cars prices went up because there were no new cars, and now people were bidding for these cars and willing to pay 20, 30, 40% more than what the car was worth before lockdown. So we'll unpack the value of used cars just now. So I don't want to spoil the surprise. So let's just leave that there. So shortage of cars, used cars, pricing going up, demand recovery. So once we came out of lockdown, everyone started going back to normal life and getting back to buying what we buy. And, you know, we're on the road, we're back to our old spending habits, largely, right? Which means that suddenly there's a demand surge and the supply is not there. So a double effect, right? And then obviously extreme weather events. I mean, I think any of you dialing in from KZN or just, you know, anywhere where there's been just a ridiculous amount of rain. It hasn't stopped raining since October last year. We've been experiencing what they call a La Nina phenomenon over southern hemisphere, specifically impacting Southern Africa, which is effectively the opposite of the drought, which is El Nino, I think, if I'm pronouncing it right. So we've had a weather system over our country for many months, and which all culminated in the terrible disaster that happened at KZN. And what that's caused is there's massive demand shock in the KZN area for kind of construction materials. And obviously the supply chain just can't handle that shock. So again, the price of goods in KZN going through the roof. We as an insurance company are sometimes having to pay 10, 15, 30% more for certain goods just to get the property repaired. Again, not in the pricing model. It's going to have a knock-on effect in the long term. Quickly on cost push factors, and I'm aware we've got about 10 minutes left. So just general inflation factors. We spoke about it globally, wage index, CPI, PPI, all the construction indices, all pushing up, which means that the cost of the end product, be it a TV, be it a phone, be it a car, it's going to go up, right? So expect that to come through. I don't think I need to tell any of you about energy prices, oil, electricity, gas in South Africa, but it's a global problem as well. We're here getting the brunt of it. So yeah, let's move on from that. We know that's going to impact inflation. Imported inflation, right? We spoke about freight cost. The fact that moving a freight from a port to another is now, well, I don't know the latest figures, but as of like February, March this year, 5 to 10 times higher, right? We spoke about global inflation, America, UK, Eurozone, all experiencing many decade highs, right? They've never seen inflation like this before. The Rand, with interest rates rising right across the globe, the Rand has struggled a bit. And then, of course, Europe and the war situation not helping at all, especially with food prices now expected to go up due to the conflict. All right, so I think I painted the picture of why it's happening. Let's try and look at one specific item, which I think is of particular importance to the insurance industry, is the impact on second-hand vehicles. Now, firstly, I think all of you will agree with me that a vehicle is not an investment, right? We've all been told that from a young age. You buy a car, next day, if it's a new car, it's 15 to 20%. It's worth 15 to 20% less. So as you drive out the shop, it's worth less. And every year, the car depreciates by 5 to 10%, depending on what make, model you drive. You know, is it a German car? Is it an Asian car? Is it an American car? Slightly different inflation pressures, but in the ballpark of 5 to 10% depreciation every year. So this yellow line here represents vehicles 0 to 10 years and their price since 2016 and how it has changed. So if a car, and let's just use an example, if a car was with 100,000 Rand at the end of 2016, by the end of June 2020, that car would have been worth something like 85,000 Rand, right? 16% lower, 15% lower, right? So 100,000 Rand car in 2016, second-hand car would be worth a 3.5. Or during lockdown and since then. The value of second-hand cars has gone up, which is a ridiculous thought for me to have. How can something that is being used every day, wear and tear, aging, right, get more valuable? It's counterintuitive. But if you go back to what we discussed just now, if there are no new cars and the inventory of vehicles in South Africa that is available for purchase, new and old cars, is not being kept, is not keeping up with this demand, the only place you can go is to used cars, because we know new cars aren't coming into the country as fast as we want. So used cars prices have to go up. Now, what does this mean from an insurance perspective? Well, the reality is that if you had to sell your car today, you're probably going to get more for it than you think or would have gotten pre-lockdown. Now, is your car insured appropriately right now is a big conversation in the industry, including no different for all mutual insure, and we're working on solutions. So historically, we used to have a very stable motor, sum insured provider. right? Because this graph, as you can see, very stable, steadily trending downwards. This now suddenly happening means that we don't have a simple methodology in assessing what a car is worth anymore. Anecdotal example, my wife sold a car for what she bought it for years ago. When she sold it, car was insured for 100,000 Rand less for it. That's what's happening, because the insurance value is based on that type of a number there, and this pattern, the market is doing this. So there's this equilibrium that we need to find, and no one's sure when we're going to get back to a normal pattern of this yellow line kind of continuing downwards again. Again, I think it's 12 months away minimum. We've got to get the supply chain issues in the new vehicles right, so that there's enough supply for vehicles compared to the demand for vehicles from our consumers. All right. Cool. So just summarize a summary of market indicators before I go to kind of consequences for the industry. Global inflation at decade-long highs, right? I think if you just go and research it, desktop research, you'll see what I'm talking about, if you're not already aware of it. Auto part costs rising right across the globe, right? Auto repairs, by definition, because we use the parts to repair, rising even faster because of CPI, right? We talked about wages and CPI right across the globe. So that's increasing. Used vehicle cost is rising. So expect that to also influence auto repairs, right? If your car's worth more, probably going to cost you more to repair it. Construction industry, so we're talking about non-motor here. Construction materials, 13.2% is the number we have from a year-on-year change. PPI, 10.5, and wage index is rising faster than CPI, right? Which is also going to have an influence on us. So put all of this together, and what we're seeing in Old Mutual Insure is that we're expecting inflation to be between 15 and 20% in the next, well, it is 15 to 20% currently, and we expect that to stabilize by the end of the year to the first quarter next year. That's our expectation or hope, probably half and half. If it doesn't settle, it just means there's even bigger consequences for everyone in the value chain. Let's talk about impact on the industry. Well, the easy one is insurance will get more expensive, right? If it's more expensive to repair a car, more expensive to return a customer with a non-motor claim to what their same position as they were before the event, obviously insurance will get more expensive. This is not a good thing though, because in South Africa, we have a high uninsured market, and the fact that insurance is getting more expensive means that we're likely to have even higher uninsured market. On top of all of this, insurance getting more expensive, we know interest rates are going up. So debt settlement by our consumers, it's costing more to settle your debt, your mortgage, your car repayments, etc. It's getting more expensive. Petrol's costing more. Food is costing more. It's just a pressure cooker, and unfortunately, insurance will get more expensive. There's nothing that insurance companies in South Africa or the globe can do. It's just the after effects of going into lockdown and disrupting the supply chain. And it is unfortunately what it is. Obviously, we're working with our procurement partners right across the value chain to try and mitigate as much of this inflation as possible. But the reality is there's only so much that we can do regarding this thing. From an existing portfolio perspective, loss ratios will worsen, and more of the premium is used to pay claims, obviously. Like I said, it was costing us 1,000 Rand to repair a bumper last year. It's costing us 1,200 Rand. The customer is not paying 200 Rand more, right? So insurer margins will be eroded rapidly. It is being eroded rapidly, right? So I guess the message to the audience here is that, one, we've got to appreciate the challenges that the entire value chain faces. And we've got this is not a Old Mutual problem or a South African insurance sector problem. This is an absolute global issue, right? My concerns around existing portfolio is that the smaller, less strong balance sheet insurers in South Africa and the globe will likely exit or pull back over the next 12 to 18 months. And that's never a good thing. We want a healthy insurance industry. We want competition. It's good for the consumer. It's good for the broker, the advisor. And unfortunately, the reality is we're going to have licenses that will come under pressure over the next year or two, is my opinion. It's just, I don't understand how it cannot happen, right? And I guess we work together as the industry to get the premiums to where they need to be and to ensure that we maintain as many of the customers as possible. Under insurance, I debated if I should talk about this first or last on the slide. A big worry for me is under insurance. If inflation is as high as it is, the reality is that it is likely that the sum insureds for your property, your contents, and your motor vehicles are below what they should be, which creates massive pressure for insurance companies at claim stage, especially someone like Old Mutual Insure. We're in the business of ensuring that we're fair to customers, and I always tell my broking advisors we settle 99% of our claims, or 98.7% of our claims, right? And these under insurance conversations are always, and we don't want to go there. We've got some solutions that I'll talk to as Old Mutual Insure, and some advice to kind of brokers and advisors to get rid of this. But key message here, brokers, make sure sum insured is appropriate. You've got to make sure that you're adjusting it upwards at the right time. I suspect that on the property side, everyone, property meaning buildings and contents, everyone's kind of 8 to 10% underinsured on average. Again, averages are dangerous. Some people will be absolutely fine, and some people will be 30, 40% underinsured, right? So on average, we probably, as an industry, 10% underinsured. We're working with on solutions. It's just very difficult when there's no reasonable way of calculating what the sum insured should be. So the best solution is to sit with your customer and have that discussion. On the motor vehicle side, even more difficult because of all the conversations we've had. What is the car worth today is not a simple question. It was a very simple question. If you phoned me up in March of 2020 before lockdown and asked me, what's that car worth? I could give you a number without thinking twice about it. Now we don't know. So again, we're working on a flexible sum insured option for our customers. We're hoping to deploy that over the next couple of weeks. But yeah, we'll have more comms on that later. Kind of reviewing of new business rates. Obviously, we've spoken about rates, right? So that's going to be the reality, is that we are reviewing new business rates constantly. As inflation goes up, new business rates have to go up similarly, right? So that is challenging. Renewals, the days of renewal increases of 3, 4, 5%, long gone now. A normal renewal increase, in my opinion, normal meaning a customer who's got a loss ratio under 25%, we're talking about 12%. That's the reality of what inflation means. A good customer is getting 12%. That's my kind of gut feel for where the industry is at the moment. And obviously bad customers who are claiming and multi-claimants will get significantly higher increases. Client risk management, never been more important. You want to segregate, not treat all customers the same. You want to make sure that someone who's at 1 claim versus 0 claims versus 2, 3, 4, 5 claims, and their loss ratio matrix, that matrix of number of claims and loss ratios looked at, and we deal with each of those segments in the right way. It's critical that we, as in Old Mutual and as an industry, start looking at these things and acting on that. And then I spoke about it. We're looking at a flex sum insured option when there's this type of uncertainty, especially in the motor space. I don't think it's practical to start putting down values, a value. So we've got to talk about a range of values, maybe, right? And we will talk about this in the industry as we're ready to unpack our solution in the next couple of weeks. Guys, I want to thank you for listening to me. Hopefully this was useful. Just kind of hear what the insurance companies are kind of talking about. I want to hand back to our MC. Thanks again.
Thank you so much, Sol, for that informative presentation, and of course for shedding a light on what's on the horizon as far as inflation is concerned. This will of course allow us to make the necessary changes and adjustments as an industry, so thank you for that. All right, over to our next speaker now, Ryan Grove from Grove Premium Partners. He's going to be sharing a talk with us today entitled Continuity Solutions for Brokers. Over to you, Ryan.
Thank you very much for the introduction. Everyone see me? Good. Good morning to everyone. I hope everyone is nice and warm today in this chilly weather. As mentioned before, I'm the head of our advisory business within the Premium Finance Partners Group. We take a lot of pride being able to come and share some of our insights with you. Every time we get invited to these InsureTalks, we really do appreciate it. And I can speak on behalf of everyone at Premium Finance Partners when I say that. What I'm going to be sharing with you today is a little bit more information about continuity solutions for brokers and how you can perhaps put one of these into place in the future to secure your business going forward. I'm going to try and keep it as short and sweet. And I hope I'm able to share some insights with you that you weren't previously privy to. Okay, let me just get up my presentation. Okay. Continuity solutions for brokers. So we know when something planning in order, but what we don't always know is when is it too late? Now, if you've come to a stage in your career where you're getting to a certain age, you're starting to think about retirement, often at this point, if you haven't yet put in place some of the solutions you might have made, it might have been too late for you. It's not something that you can just get out of or just move on with. It generally does take time. All of these solutions I'm going to present with you today do take a bit of time. Each of them have different time frames, but if at the end of your career you are looking to, say, pack it in within a year, you are going to be sorely mistaken. It doesn't go that quickly. Another one of the places or times when it's just too late to start the plan is when your business is slowly not growing, it's stagnating. This is not a great time to do any of the types of continuity solutions that I've mentioned below. It's really a good time to be looking at these when your business is thriving and you're planning ahead to try and come out on top. And then an obvious one that we feel is always necessary to say, when the passion's gone, when you are no longer loving what you are doing, if that is the case, we would always suggest that's the time. It's now come to a stage where it's not a good time to put your plan in place. You should have done it by now. So what if you timed it perfectly? What are some of the options? Now, there's an abundance of options out there, and there's a vast amount of unique combinations of what I'm going to talk about. But the three general ones where we feel you should focus your attention are management buyout or vendor finance, becoming a long-term shareholder, or selling your book or brokerage. So let's get into each of these. Management buyouts have become quite popular, specifically in an office where an owner would like to keep his hands on the business for a little bit of time, to allow for one of his proteges or employees to take over that business. or in more prevalently is with regards to family offices and allowing an heir to take over the business. What it typically is, an owner agrees to sell his business to an employee or protege. The purchase price is either funded through the raising of debt or via self-financing. Vendor financing is much more common than you think. Typically with these employees and proteges, they don't exactly have the equity or the capital to pay out all of these installments that would be arranged. A bank might not be able to loan them the money. And so what ends up happening is this vendor finance where the business and the owner will actually arrange the loan so that you are going to accrete certain portions of the equity over time. And that's usually funded through inflows within the business. Now, there are often advantages and disadvantages. As I'll go through each of these options, you'll see there's advantages and disadvantages for each of these. One of the main advantages of doing an MBO or vendor finance is, as a broker, you decide who is going to take over those relationships in your business. And you decide who's going to look after your clients. And that is something that's very important to the business and to brokers. Obviously, this is the relationship-driven business. And it's very important for brokers to keep their clients happy, the clients they've built such a good relationship with over the years. The second part is if you're wanting to look at a management buyout or vendor finance, you will specifically, this will be one of your preferences if you are looking to stay within the business, if you are looking to keep your hands on the business for at least an extended period of time. And this can range, the timeframes can be from 5 years to 10 years to 15 years based on what your arrangement will be. But it's very unique and specific to you if you want to stay in the business over a period of time and help transition your employee and protege. There are disadvantages to this. The most compelling disadvantage is that by going this route, you typically are going to get a lesser value for your business. These deals are specifically at a discount. They still specifically are marketed that way, and the owners generally will take on that discount because of the fact that they are giving it to someone that they truly want to run the business. With vendor financing, if that's the route that you've gone, you will typically have a few issues that may be more prevalent than others. There are obviously others, but one of the main ones is that there will never be a line in the sand drawn for you. What I mean by that is if you're going to accrete, if your employee is going to accrete equity over a period of time, 5%, 10%, 15%, you're always going to be in the business, half in, half out. And that's going to remain. And certainly when the equity has transitioned to your employee now having more than 50% of the business and you having less, there's a lot more ambiguity about who makes the decisions, who manages those relationships, and where the strategy of the business will go. And one of the other things you've got to remember is if you are going the vendor financing route, you are effectively going to buy yourself out of your business. And that's something that you should consider and understand. The second option is if you want to become a long-term shareholder. Now, this is one of the most sought after ones. This is the continuity plan where everyone thinks, I'm going to build this business and over time, I'm going to sort of relax my responsibilities. I'm going to hand over all my relationships to my account executives. They're going to manage the relationships and I'm going to earn what I have been earning to some extent, or perhaps fully to the same salary. Now, it sounds too good to be true, and it typically is. And don't get me wrong, there are certainly businesses that can do it. We've seen it before with each of these options that I'm explaining to you today. There's always a success story behind them. People can get it done, usually the larger businesses. But it takes a lot of understanding of the business, understanding of the industry, and growing in a manner that you can support, that the business can support those relationships without you. If you can manage to get it right, then what does that mean? What are the main advantages? Well, that means income into perpetuity. That means you technically will be earning your income in the way of dividends, management fees, whatever you structure it as, and you could be earning that money into your future. And again, there are disadvantages. One of the bigger ones is you are now shifting all the bargaining power to your account executives, to people who will now manage the relationships. That has an impact on a number of things, but the biggest component of that is allowing account executives to manage those relationships, and then the morale doesn't always last. They might be underpaid. They might think that your work is no longer necessary. And what tends to happen is these employees start to move, and they take the clients with them. So your negotiations with them regarding salary might reduce your resultant sales, not sales, your resultant dividends. So these are things you've got to consider. And then what technically and typically usually happens is owners will structure it in this manner, and then down the line, they will eventually decide, hang on, this is not working for me. And they inevitably try to sell their business. And at this stage, there's a lot of value that's been removed, or a lot of purchasing power or negotiations with a new buyer about who effectively runs this business, who owns the relationships. Another important facet to consider is that if you've built this business your whole life, you've got a substantial amount of your wealth sitting in that business. Now, if you decide that you aren't going to sell and you're going to go after this long-term shareholding, you technically are going to keep a lot of your wealth wrapped into this one, and for lack of a better word, basket. You're going to be sitting it sort of off to the side because you no longer will have the relationships, and you specifically are going to struggle to diversify your portfolio. Now, what does that mean? That means that the wealth might sit in there. You might not have the pull that you used to have, and with an ever-changing regulatory environment, or brokers or account executives leaving, that amount that you were taking out of the business may diminish quite quickly. So what is the third option? Well, the third option is selling your brokerage or your book. This to us is the most beneficial to everyone. Obviously, it doesn't suit everyone. Some people would like their children to run the business, and for those people, this is not relevant. And perhaps it might be for their children. And we always urge people to consider this well in advance. But what does that mean? What does that entail? Well, there's two options technically. You can approach an advisor or an intermediary of some sort, and they can try to market your business or your book to multiple potential buyers. And they will technically start some sort of bidding process to arrive at the maximum value, or you can try to sell it yourself. There's a lot of both. Selling your business yourself is a bit of a challenge, and I'll get into what the advisor does for you later on. But when you go to market trying to sell your own business, what typically happens is you are trying to find either a competitor, someone you've met over the last few years. You are looking to, you like the way they run their business as far as you understand it, and you approach them to sell. So what you're doing is you're kind of saying, I am selling. You're signaling to them you are, and you're telling them you would like to sell to them. Well, you kind of let the bargaining power shift onto their side. So that's one thing to consider. What are the benefits of selling your book or brokerage? Well, one of the biggest benefits is that you will likely maximize the value for that business. You will get the value out of that business. Certainly, if you go through an advisor, they will market your business to multiple buyers, and they are always going to try and guess what the other buyer is going to pay. So where they might undercut you on your value when you approach them by yourself, if you have multiple buyers, they don't know how many buyers there are, but they have to assume that the buyers on the other side will be coming up with their value to try and get this business. We always say that the best deal that goes through is the one where everyone loses a little bit. And what that means is you're not going to get the value that you have in the back of your mind at all times. And the buyers aren't always going to get the value that they want out of the business. They're not always going to buy it at a discount. And if you can find the equilibrium, that's a really good place to start. So should you use an advisor? We believe you should. An advisor will typically take care of the wholesale. They'll do all the due diligence, prepare all the marketing material. They will negotiate with buyers. They will plan and protect your confidentiality and get you more than one offer. Now, in our other parts of our lives, when we're selling a home or when we're buying insurance, what do? We go and we use some sort of intermediary to do that. You would use a real estate agent to sell a house, or you would use an insurance broker to buy insurance. Another benefit of this is you get a large lump sum upfront, right? Typically, that can range from between 70 and 80% of the agreed purchase price upfront. And then you will be required to work from 1 to 2 years to earn that other portion. And that's typically what's called an earnout or an agterskot. And that can be beneficial to you, and it can be to your detriment. What you will find is that if you work really hard in that year to 2 years, and the business is growing, and you manage to move all the relationships over to that new buyer, well, typically the second portion of your payment will have been increased, and vice versa. So if it's detrimental, or if your business is stagnated and not increasing, or you struggle to get relationships over, you typically will have to take a hit on that 20 to 30%. Selling your book or brokerages is typically the shortest time frame. Now, with MBOs, you're looking at anything from 5 to 15 years. Long-term shareholding, you've decided you're going to stay in. With selling, you're looking at 1 to 2 years, 2-3 years. Bear in mind, though, that to sell a book or a business or a brokerage takes a substantial amount of time in itself. It depends on the size of your brokerage and the complexity of it, but what typically will range from between 2 months to 8 months, and it can go either way above that range, just depending on the complexity. But with everything, there's always a disadvantage to one of these methodologies, and one of the main ones is that you will technically be selling to preferably someone who's unfamiliar. If you're going the advisor route, they'll bring to you maybe 3-4 brokers to buy. Those people you might never have met. You might not know how they work. You might not be comfortable. You will get the opportunity to select which broker you work with. You'll get the opportunity to meet with them and decide who you believe you can move book and business over to. But yes, you will not know how that proceeds after you've left and after your sale is concluded. Another disadvantage is if you go to market and you are ill prepared, you will be bullied by buyers. Buyers have been doing this and buying businesses at undervalue for many years, many more years than before you even decided to sell. So be prepared when you go to market and understand the complexity of selling a business or a book, just so that you look after yourself in the long run. And then to wrap up, some points to consider. There are benefits and disadvantages to all continuity plans. The most important thing you need to decide for yourself is what's important to you. Do you want to remain in the business? Do you want to sell the business? Are you looking at someday packing it in and saying, I need to retire now, I want to get out of the industry, I want to spend time with family? Or are you looking to be within the business? And it's very, very personal decision. You need to make the decision in your mind and give yourself an appropriate amount of time to plan ahead. Again, it's a very large decision. Most people will sell 2 to 3 homes in their lifetime. You technically or typically will only sell one business in your lifetime. So it is a large decision. If you've ever sold a home, you'll understand what a big decision that is. Now consider that in the context of selling a business. prepare your business well in advance. You know, we always say it, far-sighted business professionals think of the end in mind, meaning everything they're doing today, they are thinking about what they might have to do in the future. Their plan is happening as we speak. They're thinking, I want to exit the business in 10 to 15 years, whether that be by sale to an external party or that be to a manager within the business. You need to start now. Know your timelines. Know when you would like to stop working. As I mentioned briefly, each of these components have a certain timeline and a certain type of exit plan. If you are someone who would like to stay active, perhaps option 1 and 2 are good for you. And that would be over 5 to 10 to 15 years. And perhaps with a long-term shareholder, you will be in the business for perpetuity as well. We cannot urge you enough to get your business valued. What we can tell you for certain is that brokers, and not specifically insurance brokers, it goes across all industries, but more often than not, people overestimate their value of their business. It's a very good idea to get it valued by someone external. And then know why you are selling. If you do decide to go that way, make sure you've determined inside of you why you are getting out of the business, and make sure it's very clear. Buyers are always looking for reasons to under offer or try to get your business at a discount. And if your reason for selling doesn't line up with the facts, they become suspicious, and then nothing that happens after that really works out. And then the obvious one, but it needs to be said, sell your business when it's doing well. It's usually the guide star. It's usually something you should follow. No one wants to buy a business that is stagnating or certainly in runoff. All buyers want to buy the business when it's doing well. I thank you very much for the time, and I hope to be chatting to some of you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ryan. Judging from the activity in the chat, you've touched on a really important topic, and this is perhaps a conversation that needs to be happening a lot more frequently. So a huge thank you for sharing your insights on that. All right, over to our next speaker now. Antonia Oakes is the executive of a customer experience and responsible business at Old Mutual Insure, and her talk today is entitled Customer Experience and the Customer of the Future. Over to you, Antonia.
Thank you so much. I hope you can all hear me clearly. Apologies if I'm sounding a bit husky. I've just got a bit of inflammation in my throat, but I had to be present and avail myself for you, the beautiful audience, and the market. So some great speakers indeed before me. How do I match up to that? I guess it's really about, after understanding the economy and then how do we sell our business. The one core thing, I guess, is about how do we then look after our customers, make sure that we retain and we treat our customers fairly. And today I'm going to speak to you about customer experience and the customer of the future. We have seen that customers' behaviors and expectations have changed. Similarly, we've seen the trend with our advisors, our brokers as well. So the expectations have been illuminated, expectations have been heightened, and within good reason, I suppose. So customer experience has become a front and center conversation across the world, in boardrooms, in companies alike. In fact, 72% of businesses say improving their customer experience is top of their agenda and priority. And I'm sure every one of us have customer experience as part of your strategy. But what does it actually mean, and how do we operationalize it? That's not the topic for today, but hopefully I can share what it means. For me, it's about understanding the customer of the future and their expectations and their needs. So some brands say that brands that have superior experience bring in 5.7 times more revenue than their competitors. So just based on this statistic, CX is a big differentiator. But let's get into the nuts and bolts of customer experience. And yes, I will share with you some of those details. One being, let us just decipher and separate the meaning of customer experience and customer service. Two different things, but work hand in hand. So customer experience is the perception that customers have of an organization, one that is formed based on interactions across all touch points: people, technology, data, your website, etc. So it's really getting into the hearts and minds of your customers, the cognitive, affective, emotional, social, and physical responses to the brand, generated through both functional and emotional behaviors. Customer service is not customer experience. It's not the totality of customer experience. It's more a business function. It's the focus of a specific group of employees or people that you have that look at your service recovery type of things. I always say my definition of customer service is really your trapeze net that you have. So when your total experience does not happen or fails, that's where customer service comes in. It's focusing on the resolution of customer requests, issues, and answering questions. It does impact the total customer experience, definitely. What we are seeing is that there's been a rise in customer experience focus, as mentioned. We see that some of the non-traditional companies have taken on roles and functions of customer experience within their organizations. I thought I'd share just a few non-traditional for you. But the nice thing about customer experience is that it's a profession, it's a framework, it's a model, it's a methodology that can be applied across any industry. So I suppose, yay to me, I can work in any industry and I can work in any country, city in the world. So coming back to the different industries and companies, as mentioned, we even see in the US Parliament, where they have President Biden has appointed or wanted to improve customer service for the people. We also see in our NBA where they have looked at chief experience officers to their C-suites. And also Under Armour, a name brand or a brand that we know, is also looking at putting in chief consumer officers in his space. I just want to share a little video, and I think we know this robot quite well. His name is Wally, to give us a view on how the world has changed and where the human race has gone and what we are looking for from a customer and a people perspective. So thank you, Wally, for that. I think the future is now. The future is not coming. Yes, it is, but it is now. And what we've seen is that even the environment is a big topic for new customers, for millennials, for people, for the world. A big focus at the World Economic Forum in Davos this year was climate change. And climate change has a core impact to the insurance industry and the work that we do. I know, and I don't want to delve or go into product mode or product design, but all these things that impact our customers need to be part of our design thinking. I know some of the insurers have already started putting in things like the responsible piece of doing practice. So a typical example is if we know our customers are supporting charities, do we then give them a premium discount? So I know some insurers have already gone down that route, but it all forms part of humanocracy. It forms part of the different way of thinking in terms of how our consumers and our customers are relating to what is happening in the world, similarly to specifically focusing on climate change. So coming back to where we are when we look at customer experience. So yes, the world grappled in 2020 and 2021 with the major disruption of COVID and the pandemic that took us by shock. But I mean, we've seen changes now today. We will no longer have to wear a mask. So human behavior changed, which was driven by uncertainty and the fear of the unknown. So companies quickly caught on to the changing customer needs and designed new products which address those needs. Digital online interactions and engagements were heightened, together with online shopping, virtual parties, socials. Change in office dress code was about upper and a relaxed downer look. Expectations have been heightened, as I said, to immediacy, service now, and instant gratification. It was an eye-opening for each and everyone. Despite the hurdles, companies with a strong and adaptive customer experience foundation emerged somewhat unscathed. They stood by their customers and continued to provide a stellar customer experience. We have to listen to our customers. Our customers are focal to our businesses. And with the power of social media, I think that is very, very important. But where am I going to with this? And it really is about ensuring that customer experience is at the center of your business. It is a core differentiator because we deal with people, and people are customers, and our employees are people, and they are the ones that actually deliver the customer experience for you. So employee experience is just as important. But in terms of recapping on when the world went bonkers, and we can see the impact that it's had through Sol's presentation and through Ryan's presentation as well. How do we then keep the core and the focus? It is through ensuring that through our design practices, customers are always at the center. with me demonstrating some of this, I've just shown you some examples, and I will show a video on Checkers and how they have evolved through digital, through data, through understanding the changes in customer needs and behavior. We've seen some of our airlines, Lyft airline, that has changed, and I've had an opportunity to fly Lyft airline just to give the CEO a bit of feedback on whether it's working. So the whole relaxed look of the air hostesses and the air hosts that they have are no longer that traditional, very professional look. They are dressed down. They do things a bit differently on the airline, but because human beings are programmed, does it actually have an impact on the experience, on the service? I'll leave that for you to experience. So take a Lyft flight and experience it for yourself. Just for a bit of humor, I've put a little picture there to say, due to a shortage of robots, our staff is made up of humans and therefore react unpredictably when abused or under pressure. Core for me is we're still dealing with humans, we're still dealing with people, so it's important to understand our customers. Coming back home, I have also shared how I've shared a digital insurer, something from a digital insurer, that with the changes in customer needs and behaviors has gone digital. So digitally engaged customers make informed decisions and enhance their buying experience through research, reviews, and ease of use. Changing customer behavior and preferences is impacting the insurance industry, and I guess the economic factors is impacting the customer behavior as well, and hence we need to think and look at things differently. So this is fast tracking the entry of digital players. We've seen it. It's here, it's now, and digital and direct players in the SA market like Naked, Simply, Lumkana, Yasho, Yalo, and Pineapple are here to stay and forever evolving with customer changes and customer behaviors. I thought I would share some CX trends that we are seeing emerging, and these are the 2022 trends. As I've mentioned, and I'm not going to regurgitate that, the consumer behavior and what it's telling us is of utmost importance. And maybe just pausing on this one for a while, I saw something on a Nike blog where Nike has now launched a sneaker that is the price equivalent to a Ferrari. So I'll just pause there and say, wow. So again, understanding where our consumers are going and what their needs are is important. So the what we are seeing is that the new want it now culture dictates the terms. So instant gratification. I always say digital technology is awesome because it enhances customer experience. But if you do not overlay your customer behaviors with your digital journey and your digital solutions and implementations, you will get it so wrong. You will get it wrong. Seamless omni-channel experiences replace physical, so digital patchwork. So 38% of customers expect you to know who they are and the context of their query immediately. So how do we use our data to proactively and to predict these things? Messaging and mobile first, redefine delight. So consumers value speed more than ever, especially if we're going to go technology and digital. Their desire for speedy interactions and resolutions now govern how they choose to communicate. Experiences move from automation to prediction. So 1 in 3 decision makers implementing AI state that optimizing it to predict customer needs and deliver personalized experiences is a key consideration for driving return on investment. The age of agent-led bot enhanced experiences. Agents had to face the brunt of recent pandemic-induced upheavals. Now with the flex and hybrid way of working, what is that going to bring to the fore? So soaring query volumes that we saw with the pandemic, increasing customer anxiety, broker anxiety, advisor anxiety, and adapting to remote work environment. So these are some of the trends that we've seen through or globally and across also our domestic businesses as well. But getting to know the real customer of the future is key. And I thought I would illuminate and surface some of the items that I've seen come through in terms of customer of the future. So the experience economy. Experience economy, people choose to spend their money on experiences over things. I think we've seen this time and time again. How do we differentiate to ensure that our products, and especially the insurance industry, how do we make it sexy? How do we make it more experiential? That's what customers are looking for. Not just customers of the future, but customers of the now. Surprise your customers. So I used this example before. Netflix lost about 2 million or 200,000 customers, but Netflix has that shuffle button, and that creates surprises for their viewers without them creating a bit of stress and strain or what do I need to watch. But Netflix can, through the data they have accumulated, know what their customers want through that shuffle button. Social media and the shift in power and influence from the business to the customer. We all have smartphones, or most of us have smartphones. We know the power that social media has. Influencers have sprung up overnight. Social media and smartphones have armed customers with a platform and a microphone. So suddenly customers are speaking about the experiences they have. We cannot afford to be left out of those positive experiences. I've mentioned the artificial serendipity. It's about surprising your customers. And I know, how do we bring this back to insurance? Insurance can be seen as a grudge purchase, but how do we change that? Through understanding our customers, through digital, through technology. Zero tolerance for digital inconvenience, as I've mentioned. Customers expect good stuff. Don't give me a digital solution or a digital self-solution, but I still need to wait, or I still need to go through to a call center. An experience that I've had lately was with DSTV, a good experience, with a very warm, smart handover. So talking to a bot, but when the bot says, I'm going to refer you, because remember, it's what we put into that AI, or that creates that AI. It's what we put in. But I had a very warm handover. Instantly, someone called me. I thought, wow, that is amazing. And how do we get it right like that, or even better always? And customers want a partner in life. Create positive change in the life of your customers. So understand your customer life stages. I think some of our advisors have done quite a good job with that. How do we automate that? How do we make it seamless as well? Understanding your customers' life journeys. Customers are starting to live in the virtual world, and this is a scary one for me. I mean, do we now create insurance NFT products? We're already selling property in the metaverse universe. We're already starting to market fashion in the metaverse. We're already starting to do holidays, making and selling virtual goods. Do we become involved overnight as SA in this metaverse universe? For me, that is quite scary, but it's reality, and that is the future and the customer, where the customer of the future is playing. Before I share this video, this I thought is brilliant with how Checkers has evolved and gone into, let me say, the future quite quickly. And I think I shared, let me go into it.
The reason we launched ShopriteX was a realization that customers are transforming almost faster than we were. Retail is as much about doing the old things well as it is about using technology to get products to customers in a cheaper and faster way.
We have already seen some great innovation coming out of here. One being the extra savings rewards program, and then the groundbreaking 60/60 on-demand grocery delivery service. We take our enhanced, very rich customer data, marry that with what ShopRite has proven to do is an unsurpassed level of operational efficiency, to marry those two through precision retail to make the most customer-centric retailer on the continent.
So if you take 60/60, which has been a multi-award winning innovation, we did more of the hard work for customers than ever's been done before in South Africa. One of the very cool stats is that we delivered 1.5 million orders in the last year in less than 30 minutes. Another one of my favorite pet projects is Checkers Rush. It's our concept of a check-outless store. Walk in, pick up the products off the shelf, walk out. We use advanced AI and machine vision technology and cameras to identify which products and brands customers are taking from the shelf, and then we automatically bill your bank card. We're really excited about our new ShopRite X campus. It's a purpose-built mixed-use development, and it's really been built with collaboration in mind. So everything is very purposefully designed. I've been in retail 17 years, but I realize some of the best ideas in innovation have come from people that have only been with our business a couple of months.
It's not a job or a position. When you work at ShopRite X, it's like living out a passion.
And we have a broad, diverse group of people. So it's always learning something new.
You know, we've got this ability to innovate. We've got this ability to be quite creative in the way we solve problems and to leverage the tools and the people that we have. So I think it's quite a free-thinking organization. It's more about how do we deliver value to our customers.
It's collaborative. You're inspired to come to work. You're encouraged to take risks, fail fast. It's an awesome energy.
We are ShopRite, and this is ShopRite X.
So wow, I always get goosebumps when I've watched that video because there's a few key takeouts for me. It's the employee experience, how they treat their employees, who in turn become innovative to make sure that they treat their customers and design and develop and innovate for their customers smartly, effectively. But for me, ShopRite X, you get your ShopRite X and your Woolies Dash. They are teaching us, I suppose, how to evolve and at a pace where what customers want and what they need and what is relevant to them. So it's about providing value-adding products to our customers. But we cannot do that if we do not build, design, think about what our customers are experiencing, what they are going through, and ultimately whatever processes, whatever functions, whatever roles, and whatever products, which is the biggest piece for me, need to be value adding for our customers. So I thought I'd share that with you, just to give you an idea of what some retailers are doing when it comes to rethinking, reliving, redesigning customer experience. Maybe coming back home, I thought I'd just share from an old mutual insure perspective, something that we have done to connect with our customers on a human level and an emotional level. I love this word called humanocracy. You might have seen this ad being flighted, our TV commercial ad being flighted, I think it was about 2 or 3 months ago. But Magical Moments is about understanding our customers at claims loss stage. We know that our customers go through traumatic instances when they claim, and that's why we call it a claims loss. But how could we make it better for them? Obviously, we cannot replace sentimental items. We cannot replace the lives that you lose sometimes in a claim, but we can try and make it better. And with Magical Moments and the initiative and the program that we run at Old Mutual Insure, this is what it's all about. It's just about trying to make that traumatic event a little bit better at that time of loss. I will play the video now just to demonstrate, give you a bit of background on what it's all about.
Some days, you just need a hug, a helping hand, or just a friendly voice on the other side. These days, we can even do with a little sprinkle of kindness from an insurer that cares. Magical Moments, an Old Mutual Insure customer initiative.
Thank you. I didn't want to play it again, although I would have because I love it so much. But thank you everyone for listening to me, and I'll hand back to the studio.
Thank you so much, Antonia, for that presentation. Indeed, the conversation around a customer experience is one that will never get old, and it's so important for us to continuously listen attentively to our customers. So thank you so much for sharing those insights. All right, we're going to go into a short entertainment segment brought to you by Jean Nangwala, who is a singer, as well as Black Roots, who are a marimba band. Do enjoy this and be sure to be back straight after this. See you soon.
The song I'm going to share with you is an original piece, and I use the analogy of the relationship between a mother and a daughter. Watch on Lucello. Hey mama, I'm off to school. I think I'm here. Your dress is too short. Who you trying to impress? She say dress up to kill, girl, but don't show too much. You need to smile, but don't be too loud. Mama, please don't you start. Please don't put me down. Don't you box me either. Trust that you raised me right. I'll be just fine, fine, fine. Young girl, sit down. She used to say, we all wanna see you win. The world may be rough, but girl, you're enough. There's no need to rush. Please don't put me down, mama. Don't you box me either. Just trust that you raised me right. I'll be just fine, fine, fine. Now that I'm older, I see the fullness of intent. Now that I'm older, I know you weren't trying to box me in. Now that I'm older, you taught me to be kind. Trust that you raised me right, and I'll be just fine. Please don't put me down. Don't you box me in. Trust that you raised me right. I'll be just fine, fine, fine. Please don't put me down. Don't you box me in. Trust that you raised me right. I'll be just fine, 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 fine. I'll be just fine. that you raised me right. I'll be just fine.
All right, and we are back. Some beautiful sounds are coming through there. Hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. All right, on to our next segment now with the birthday girl herself. Thokozile Mahlangu, the CEO of the IISA, is going to be giving us an IISA industry update. Over to you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am Thokozile Mahlangu as introduced. Today, I thought I would talk to you about what to expect at conference on the Sunday, what to expect from a keynote address, the gala dinner, as well as the closing talk on Tuesday. So Sunday, we're going to kick off with golf. The golfers will have an opportunity to network with each other while enjoying the beautiful scenery at Sun City. On Sunday, there will be no formal event in the evening. However, delegates will have an opportunity to arrange business dinners and network with each other. Much needed networking after a 2-year of not having the in-person conference. On Monday, we're going to kick off with the governor of the Reserve Bank doing a talk in response to an award that will be granted at conference. Immediately after the governor, we're going to have Mr. Muloko, the group chairperson of the IISA group, giving a talk on the role of insurance in the economy. In the evening of Monday, we're going to have our gala dinner. At the gala dinner, that's where we recognize the top academic achievers, people that have been doing qualifications towards insurance-related fields. At the gala dinner, we are also going to have the inauguration of our incoming president, Mr. Colin Molepe, the current CEO of IISA Insurance. He'll be taking over from Mr. Themba Baloyi, our current president and chairperson of the board. Moving on to Tuesday, we're going to start off Tuesday with a panel discussion on a topic titled The Future of Underwriting, a much needed discussion really. We have experts from Accenture who are going to unpack the future of underwriting from various angles, from insurance, reinsurance, and really looking at how is underwriting to be looked at from a strategic perspective. And then we're going to close off the conference by having Dominique Christian, who is the chairperson of the Global Reinsurance Solution at Aon UK, who's going to give a talk on a different roadmap for growth. So those are just a few things that I thought I would share with you today to look forward to at conference. And if you have not registered, you still have an opportunity to do so due to an increase in demand for the in-person session. We've had to increase the capacity from 500 to 600, and we are just close to reaching the 600 capacity. So do take the opportunity and register if you haven't done so. We look forward to hosting you and looking forward to having various discussions on the theme Resurgence, Resilience, Revival. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Thokozile. That really sounds like an exciting and jam-packed lineup for the AIE conference. We hope all of our attendees here online will do the right thing and register. And once again, a very happy birthday to you from us here at CN&CO. All right, over to our next speaker now. He's no stranger to these streets. Tony van Niekerk is the founder of Cover, and he's going to be chatting to us about e-learning, a way to the top. Over to you, Tony.
Thank you very much once again. It's great to be talking to all of you. And just from our side, Thokozile, happy birthday. I hope it's a wonderful day and hope you enjoy that. Today, I'm going to sort of be using a little bit of a soapbox approach and using this opportunity to jump on my soapbox and talk a little bit about some stuff that one can see from different angles. The theme of the event today is insurance in an ever-changing world. And yes, the world is changing around us, but we've all heard the saying, there's nothing new under the sun. So what if I was to tell you that there's nothing new under the sun, but then show you how you can take advantage of everything that is new under the sun? And it doesn't really make sense, but at the end of the day, I will show you how it actually does make sense. So I took this, everybody knows, or most people know, that this quote actually comes from the Bible. It says, "What has been will be again, what has been done will be done again. There is nothing new under the sun." It comes from Ecclesiastes. And the opinion is that it was sort of coming from a preacher that was a bit bored with his life and with what he was doing, and it was a bit monotonous. And I don't think any of us can say that life today is really boring. So nothing new under the sun. That might be so, but it does not mean that everything that is will stay static. It changes. So I want to use sort of a bit of a semantic debate, which is why I said that I'm going to jump on a soapbox a little bit here, to illustrate. We have changes and we have shifts, as people spoke. So yes, you can say it's semantic, arguably the same thing. But if I use an example of, for instance, a car and shifting gears, you could say these are two different things. As you accelerate in first gear, there's change. The revolutions go up, the car speeds up, but it reaches a limit. And then you need to shift gears. In other words, you need to do something that will shift from first gear to second gear to be able to take advantage of the benefits of having more gears than one. So once there's a shift, everything changes. Higher revolutions, faster speed, and of course, increased risk. So then if I take a second sort of semantic debate, we have evolution versus disruption. Everybody's been talking about disruption, and personally, I'm still waiting for that disruption. Evolution can almost be seen as incremental improvement, and then disruption as more of a revolutionary change. So the reason why it's so difficult for existing firms to capitalize on disruptive innovations and that their processes and their business model makes them good at existing business, but it is a bit of a challenge for them in competing when there's disruption. So if you look at what I just spoke about, it doesn't only go for business. It also goes for you as an individual and your family. Illness, accident, relocation, etc. All of these things could either be seen as a disruption, it could be seen as just a change, it could be a radical revolution, depending on how it affects you. And it affects all of us differently. It's a change in our environment, but that change can be have various ways of impacting us. So with all the changes, the shifts, the revolutions, and the disruptions, where does it leave each one of us, our careers and our personal lives? I've mentioned my favorite quote a few times before on this panel. The secret to success is to be ready for your opportunity when it comes. It's Benjamin Disraeli. However, I sort of have a bit of a criticism of this quote, because the more you prepare yourself for unexpected opportunity, which based on what I spoke about before and the theme of this event, insurance is in an ever-changing world, the more you will be able to spot or create the opportunity. In other words, it's not just about being ready for your opportunity when it comes, but also being ready to spot change, to spot a shift, and to then create your own opportunity. If you are bored in a world where nothing is new under the sun, it must purely be because you've not realized that even so, we live in an ever-changing world. This to me is the most exciting thing about the current world that we live in. We're all free to sort of shape our own future to some extent, to create our own opportunities and to prepare ourselves for a whole variety of opportunities that might present to us. So if you then look at what I've said, subliminally, maybe it's a big punt for us, for cover, for e-learning, but for any other e-learning platform out there, for any way in which you could enrich yourself to be able to take advantage of opportunities, but also to create opportunities for yourself. Don't just look at learning and development, etc., as a necessity, but look at it as sort of an enrichment to be able to equip yourself to spot opportunities, to create opportunities, but also to then actually execute on those opportunities and create your own shift, your own change, your own revolution in your life. Because these opportunities present themselves continuously every day. All we need to do is to prepare ourselves for those. And so I will leave you with this. Go out and create your own disruption. Don't wait for the disruption to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Tony, for those words of wisdom shared right at the end there. So much truth in that. Right, we're fast approaching the end of our session. Our next speaker now is Knox Dlamini, the co-founder of Zon Risk. And in case you haven't figured it out, Zon Risk is her name spelled backwards. She's going to be chatting to us today around the topic entitled Open the Floodgates. Over to you, Knox.
Thank you very much, Noni. Hello to everyone. And I have to say a special shout out to Madame President. Happy birthday, of course. I think everyone's warmed up by now, so I'll just jump straight into it. Let's get it. Okay. So my talk today is titled Open the Floodgates, right? So I was an engineering underwriter in my previous life before I joined the wily world of being an insurance salesperson. So a lot of my references pertain to the built environment, like my title for this talk. So please indulge me. Floodgates, as I'm sure you're aware, are used in the operations of dams to manage the water levels in and around them. And of course, when they're opened, it's done to release excess water and maintain the integrity of the dam walls and protect the surrounding areas, right? Cool. So I'll park my lesson there for now. And we'll revisit later once we've gotten through the foundations and the construction stages of what I'm sharing. I told you that engineering bug is still within me. So I've listened in awe at the previous incredible speakers. And as we gather here talking about insurance in an ever-changing world, I'm thoroughly fascinated, curious, geeked out, absolutely excited for the future, as I'm sure every member of the audience is, but perhaps for slightly different reasons than most people. When we talk about the world having changed, whose world are we actually talking about? When we mention the changes and developments that are taking place around us and in our worlds of work at this incredibly rapid and dynamic pace, who are we including in this world? Or perhaps the more important question is, who are we excluding? What are the groups that are peripheral to our assumptions? Who are the ones denied these solutions for whatever reason? Who have we invited into decision-making structures to contribute to the narrative and the solving for X in this new ever-changing world? And if there are people not invited into this caucus, does the new world involve them? Is it built with them in mind? And do our solutions as risk practitioners cater for them? Are we consciously choosing to leave them on the fringes of society? As you would have heard from my bio, my personal career callings involve two things: making an impact in the youth and women empowerment space within our industry, as well as doing what I can to reduce the insurance protection gap. These both hinge on the overarching value of inclusion or inclusivity, if you will. And when we talk about an ever-changing world and developing insurance to keep up with this ever-changing world, the concept of inclusion has to be central to the conversation. If there is one thing the pandemic really highlighted, it was the drawbacks of being in such an unequal society and really driving home the message that until all of us are free, really, none of us are. Until all of us have access, it doesn't matter if we do or don't. When the need to be vaccinated made the rounds and the realization that to curb the spread and deadly impact of the pandemic and unshackle us from the confines of lockdown, herd immunity would have to be reached. We realized then really how much we need each other as a society, how much we impact and rely on each other. If not enough people received vaccinations, herd immunity was not possible. It's a powerful and important concept. We won't achieve full equality by merely focusing on our own struggles and ignoring causes that don't seem to involve us. As Nelson Mandela said, to be free is not merely to cast off one's chains, but to live in a way that respects and enhances the freedoms of others. So similarly, within our microcosmic insurance world, we're limiting our abilities to create and develop winning solutions for the ever-changing world if we have the same people in the room. If the perceptions, ideas, lived experiences, divergences of everyone aren't taken into consideration, if our panels and research teams and thought leaders and conversation drivers and decision makers are not representative of the society we live in and the ever-changing world we find ourselves in, we limit the potential for the new world and industry we're all collectively building. Are young people in our organizations exposed to the opportunities to learn and develop skill sets to confidently present their ideas and solutions and contribute to the changing world that we're moving towards? Are women being invited to take a seat at the decision-making table in our organizations? Are you making a point of getting input from individuals of all races at upper levels of the companies? If yes, absolutely amazing. Please reach out to me and tell me about those. I'd love to hear about those experiences and the benefits you've gleaned from them. If not, consider this your opportunity or your prompt really, to really think about this and to really drive inclusivity within your organization. And realizing that for the best results, inclusivity has to be central to the conversation, with no marginalized groups left on the fringes of the bullet speed trains that we're riding into the future. So as much as I pose these questions to the audience, I've asked these very questions of myself and the team at ZonRisk. We've had to come up with answers. So firstly, I'm very proud to say that we're a majority Black, female, and youth-owned and managed organization. In the industry that we're in, that is quite laudable. With myself as the founder, some of the ways in which we're ensuring and driving inclusion is we have a young, super dynamic advisory board made up of brilliant young professionals within and outside of the industry, consulting with them on strategies, ideas for growth, and just how far to push the envelope makes for some of the most electrifying engagements. The result of our diverse makeup is evidenced in the approach we've taken towards developing and distributing solutions for underserved markets such as SMEs. In the 3 years that we've been operational and been on the ground, consulting customers, employing discovery and acquisition strategies to refine the model, we've gained tons of data, and we see it validated in the increase of players who see the importance of focusing on the target market, developing solutions for SMEs. This is proof of the business case for inclusion and inclusive insurance practices. And we're right there along with the best of them at the frontiers of this wave. The formation of ZonRisk, of course, would not have been possible without more established and experienced players recognizing that the world is changing and the insurance world needs to follow suit, and backing the goals of a young 27-year-old who hails from rural KZN, myself at the time. The result was the formation of an organization that will be the champion intermediary for SMEs in this country, and will probably pivot into an actual risk carrier in the foreseeable future. So watch the space. Now, imagine how many more of these talents exist. How many more sit in the obscurity of our offices without the space, confidence, sponsorship, voices, capital to contribute to the narrative, innovate for the ever-changing world, and pioneer solutions that we haven't even begun thinking about. We can't all win The Apprentice, but we can shine the spotlight on those talents, create nurturing spaces for them to form part of our new world order. To close, and to go back to my construction example right at the beginning, see the insurance industry as a dam, filled with promise, filled with talent, filled with unrealized potential. And I implore you to open the floodgates, each in your own way, for inclusive, better solutions in the ever-changing world that we find ourselves in. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Knox, for that very insightful presentation. All right, while we get ready for our next speaker, we're going to take a short break while we prepare him to come on. Do not go away. Stay tuned for our very last speaker. See you soon. And we are back with the last speaker of the session. Lifa Hlongwa is a motivational speaker and is going to be chatting to us today around overcoming life's adversity, something we had to do a short moment ago with some technical difficulties. Over to you, Lifa.
Hi everyone, my name is Lifa Hlongwa, so I'm just starting everything. Hope you guys are doing well. I'm just gonna share I actually started have a slideshow that I want to share with you all. I'm just gonna open that right now. Mind just bearing with me. Share screen. Can you see this? Perfect. Hi. Hi everyone. My name is Lifa Hlongwa, and I want to take this opportunity to thank you for having me as a guest speaker. I always appreciate moments like these where I get to share my journey and reflect on how far I've come through adversities, from being an inspiring rugby player in Durban to having my life change in a single moment. I've set up a slideshow presentation to share with you, and in what I can describe to you as a roller coaster of emotions. I've selected some critical moments that I feel might paint a better picture from where I'm coming from till most recent events. Unfortunately, I couldn't add more due to time constraints, but I hope you appreciate the ones I've selected. So I'm just yeah. So my story starts 4 years ago. I was chasing a dream as a professional athlete playing rugby, and one day playing for the Sharks. I was young, strong, and I felt invincible, like many of us do in our early 20s, maybe even beyond that age. I played Premiership rugby for North Crusaders, making my way through the system in Durban, playing with friends that now I see on TV doing what we dreamt of doing as a career, before I played my last tackle. It was the 30th of June 2017 in a scheduled rugby match. I can remember it like it was yesterday against our toughest opponent, Toti. It was about second half into the game. It was a line out, and off the line out, I got the ball in the maul, and I sidestepped the defender and scored my try, even after the game. It was a tough game, and about second half into the game, sorry, I have a video of the screen, sorry about that. So towards the final moments of the game, it was scrum time. And as the ball was put into the scrum, the ref called, touch, pause, set, and pause. Just like that, as the ball is in of the scrum, I chase down the line and the big centre breaks and lines up with me. And in a ferocious tackle, we both collapsed onto the ground. At that instant moment, I couldn't feel my legs. I couldn't use my hands. I couldn't get up. Frustrated and anxious, I lie there on the center of the field. I have a video that I'd like to share. It's of my injury. That's me at 6 and suddenly I couldn't get up. I was rushed to hospital. Thereafter, doctors ran numerous tests. As I lay there curious, wondering how long I'd be away from rugby before I could start playing again, the doctors entered the room and sat next to me and told me plainly that I'd never play rugby again because I'd never walk again. At that moment, it felt like my whole world had crashed and burned right in front of my eyes. I was filled with all kinds of emotions that I just burst into tears. I was later placed with 2 metal balls that were screwed on either side of my skull, either side of my head, and at the end hang 5 kgs of weight, stretching my spine, allowing to ease the pressure off the 6 and 7 vertebra. 6 and 7 vertebra. Physically, the most painfulest thing I had to experience in hospital. I was broken in all sense of the word. I was fixed to the hospital bed, unable to get up, feed myself, or do the most basics of tasks. Although I was fortunate to have my teammates, my friends around me visiting me through days I hated life. After my surgery, having my 2 bones at the base of my neck fused together, I finally got this torture device off my skull. Then shortly I was sent to a rehabilitation center where I spent an additional 3 months being assessed, trained, paralyzed, and classified as a quadriplegic. I started my rehab, basically relearning how to do everything from sitting to the side of the bed without falling, dressing myself, and holding a spoon and a fork to feed myself, which I had lost all abilities to do, which were all challenging, but I had to learn and accept that this would be my new life, being disabled. On one fateful day, as I lay in bed, frustrated and wanting to give up, my toe on my right foot started to wiggle. At first, I hardly could control the action, but after a few days, I was able to get my toe to move on command. I was so excited, physios didn't believe it, and this sparked something in me that said that I'd be able to walk again. Thus began the next 2 months of the hardest training I've ever had to go through, physically and emotionally. Since not all days were successful, and failures probably outweigh the successful days, but every day I saw it was progress, and not me lying in bed and accepting what is. I promised myself that day that I would not let what the doctors tell me or the limited expectation of what I could do judge how far I could go, and take every day one step at a time. After 3 months of rehab, I walked out. As you can see, these are the first few days that I spent, first few weeks I spent in rehab, just relearning how to walk on these parallel days. So I walked out of rehab after 3 months, just in time for a final being played in Durban, Sharks versus Stormers. People always ask me if I'm bitter of the game after my injury and what it had done to me. And no, I'm not. Who I am today is through rugby. My teammates, who are my closest friends, kept me going, and the support I received after my injury has been a blessing. Rugby isn't just a game, but a bit more, with strong core values and traditions that are easily relatable for life. As I reflect that, in sports, life, and business, there's certain things you can't control, but what you can control is your response to that. That's where your power lies. Remember that. I was sent back home in Durban after being in rehab, and I'm still adjusting to this new life. I'm still very weak, although I could walk. I couldn't walk fast or at a normal pace, and long distances was absolutely a challenge. So I still use my wheelchair a lot. and my walking frame to continue rehab as an outpatient. After a rehab session, I was contacted by a rowing coach from Durban Rowing Club who had heard about my story over the radio and offered me to come row on the water with the club. And she mentioned that it would benefit my rehab. Unsure, not ready to take on another sport. Plus, it was less than 6 months since my injury. But my mother convinced me otherwise, that it would be a good idea to go and to get out the house. I was probably eating a lot more than she was willing to cook for me. So I had to go. So I went, and on the first day, got onto the water in the small boat in the harbor with these huge ships around me moving. We should think about it now, was kind of dangerous, but I enjoyed being out on the water. After a few weeks later, I got a call from the Sharks who offered me a 3-month rehabilitation program in Cape Town, where in hopes to speed up my recovery with this amazing technology called an exosuit that allows you to walk, and people who can never walk again actually put on the suit and walk in it. If I can describe it to you, like the suit they made Robocop, but you couldn't stay in it or use it to chase bad guys. Weeks had passed of training and watching rugby next door, because I stayed literally next door to Newlands Rugby Stadium and the cricket stadium at that time. I was also close to the mountain, and one day I had a group of friends who wanted to spend a day with me, to do whatever I wanted in Cape Town. And that night I decided I wanted to hike one of the mountains. Unsure of their response, they agreed, and I was really surprised, to be honest. I just upgraded to crutches to walking, and it was far from perfect how well I moved at that time, but I was excited for the challenge. So we decided to hike up Lion's Head that morning. We started at the base of the mountain and went up. And if you haven't been on Lion's Head, it's pretty challenging. There's ladders and chains. And as you can imagine, it was pretty difficult. At that moment, it was the scariest thing that I could do. But you can say that about the best things in life. You either take the risk or you risk staying in the same place the rest of your life. So we kept on going, and we got to the top, and it was absolutely beautiful. I just remember thinking when we were there that it was so easy to focus on the negative things that we neglect to appreciate the things we have and appreciate the positive things that we have, because it could be something someone else is praying for. After that one experience, I was hooked to adventure, which fueled the fire to constantly get stronger. And months later, when I returned to Cape Town, I hiked up Table Mountain, a few trails in the city, and most recently in the Drakensberg, doing the longest hike I've ever done, 2 days, going up Rhino's Peak and sleeping in a cave, one of my greatest experiences I've ever had. Unfortunately, I couldn't get to the top. Halfway through, I had broken one of my hiking poles, which made it very difficult to continue. But I guess that was a big lesson learned. I guess not every opportunity will work out to being successful at first. That's why we learn from the past and try again harder the next time with a little bit more experience than we did at first. Yes, I'll probably be back in Drakensberg, and life's beautiful. And And that means accepting the good and the bad that comes with it. 2018, moving forward, was probably one of my defining years that has led me on this course that I'm in right now. So one day I was laying back watching TV and an advert comes on, and it was Rian Manser offering a willing South African to join him on his show to compete with 10 other competitors in a chance to row with him across the Atlantic Ocean from the Canary Islands to Barbados. In my mind, I really didn't think much of it, but my mother just mentioned that I should enter. If I didn't get a response, I didn't. It's just one of those things. So I agreed and sent in my submission. And honestly, I forgot all about it. I think after 2 weeks later, I had got a call from Rian telling me that I had made top 10 of thousands who had entered. And I would be competing against 9 other able-bodied guys who also excited and prepared to win. I didn't know what to say, but thanked him and dropped the call and went to tell my mother the exciting news. As you've noticed, my mother is at the center of these wild things that I do. So I was flown to Cape Town and met all these strong, able competitors and Rian Manser, who was excited to have me on the show. As I smiled along, in my mind, thoughts are racing. Like, what did I just get myself into? I couldn't run, I couldn't jump. I don't think I was confident that I knew how to still swim after my injury. But I was confident that I knew how to row because it was to row with Rian Manser across the Atlantic. So I was calm and ready if I was ever wrong. On the first day, Rian tells us we had 3 challenges separated into 3 different days, each harder than the previous one. We got paired up with our partners and off we went. It was a brutal 3 days. On one, I had been pinned on a rock and almost drowned. My partner says he didn't realize and thought I was checking out the fishes before he realized what was actually happening and pulled me out the water. It was the most toughest experience I've ever faced. But I didn't care. I was strong and I pushed myself through it. One of my friends would always say to me, whenever I do something, no matter how small or big, I should always give it my best. Then why do it at all? In the end, I made it out of the competition alive, safe to say. I think they still broadcast the show on Showmax. So when you ever have time, I advise you to check it out. It was really done well. At the end, unfortunately, I didn't make it to row with Rian, spoiler alert, but afterwards, one of the judges is an Olympic gold medalist, Sizwe Ndlovu, who is head coach at the University of Johannesburg, offered me a full bursary to row with him. He later told me that he saw some real grit and fight in me and thought I could really do well and make it into the Olympics. 3 years later, I'm studying a degree in BCom Economics and Economics at the University of Johannesburg. I rowed for South Africa and did my first international race in Italy, which was an incredible experience. The results didn't go my way, but it fueled me up to train harder and be exceptional in my next race. That's my story. And to be honest, there isn't much difference between you and I. And the same incident that lies in me lies in you as well. If I can leave you with one thing, to remember. From this, if I can give you one thing to remember from this, and that is right now you're alive and you're all in. No matter what you do, you're all in. And that's interesting. One day you'll die. So I think you might as well play the most magnificent game you could play while you wait. Why not? Why not pick the best possible thing you could do? Because you're more powerful than you think. Way more powerful than you think. Only God knows in the final analysis of your life. Since we are blind to our weaknesses and our strengths. So how far can you take that if you stop wasting time and if you stop lying to yourself and orientate yourself to the highest form of good that you can conceive of and commit to that? How much good could you do in your job, your next step, or your career? There's a reason you're alive at this particular point in history. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alifa, for sharing your story. Very inspiring indeed. I'm sure we've all learned something about how to face our own adversity. So thank you so much for sharing that. Apologies to our attendees on the glitchy sound we had over there. We will be sharing the link to the entire session post the event. All right, some great news now. We have posted a link in the chat that could put you in the running to win a virtual ticket for the upcoming AIE conference. All you need to do is click that link, complete the survey, and you could be the lucky winner to win that ticket. The CN&CO team will be in contact with the lucky winner. All right, just like that, we have reached the end of our session. A huge thank you once again to all of our sponsors. Our headline sponsor today was Old Mutual Insure. A huge thank you to you, as well as our event partners, the IISA, as well as Cover. And then, of course, a huge thank you to all of our speakers for availing yourselves today to share your valuable insights. We do appreciate it. And then, of course, you, our attendees, our MVPs, a huge thank you to you for your continued support of InsureTalk. I'm told we had just under 1,600 attendees online today. That is truly a magnificent and testament to the value of InsureTalk and the impact it is making in our industry. A reminder that InsureTalk 24 will take place on the 28th of July. That is InsureTalk 24 taking place on the 28th of July. Do be sure to register. We have posted the link in the chat function as well. All right, as I always do, I'll leave you with my short and maybe even a cliche quote, but it's still true. The only constant is change. From myself, Nontutsugo Mhlungu, and the CN&CO events team, it's been an absolute pleasure. Stay safe, stay warm, and see you at InsureTalk 24.